Welcome back, fam, to another live cast to once again discuss politics, justice, culture, and how these ideals intersect. Now, today, we are going to talk about something that I see all too often in America, and that's the misuse of fantastical imagery and biblical prophecy to justify modern time conspiracy theories. And this is not something that's only a right-wing Christian dilemma. This is also something that non-Christians frequently do. Just this week, I saw an atheist using passages found in Ezekiel to draw parallels to the imagery of modern-day UFOs and aliens. And in their defense, at first glance, it is easy to come to these conclusions when reading apocalyptic texts because we're familiar with modern fictitious imagery that's in pop culture. Now, I'm not saying that aliens do or do not exist. I'm simply saying they are not depicted in the verses of the Bible and in the Old Testament, like some claim. Now, there are also those among us that might be zoning out right now. You might be checking out because you think that this isn't interesting because the apocalyptic text and prophecies are just a collection of wild visions that are induced by psychosis or hallucinations that were induced by a fever dream or maybe some controlled substances. And that assumption, I would say, is wrong. And while it's possible that some of these images were induced with the aid of some type of hallucinogenic substance or practice, I believe there is far more historical significant reasons for the apocalyptic text, and there's far more logical explanations that many are just unfamiliar with, which is why today's conversation matters. So I want to take some time to unpack the book of Ezekiel that's often revered by conspiracy theorists to justify the existence of aliens. Ezekiel was an exiled prophet and deportee in the land of Babylon after Israel had been conquered in 597 BCE. Now, the book of Ezekiel makes many prophetic claims and gives off a gloating and vengeful tone. And many ancient alien enthusiasts believe that these verses are describing spacecraft and otherworldly visitors that happened to show up to Earth in ancient times and maybe help them build ancient architecture. But does it though? Let's read and find out. The book of Ezekiel says this: "As I looked, a stormy wind came out of the north, a great cloud with the brightness of fire all around it, flashing forth continually, and in the middle of the fire, something like gleaming amber." Now here, Ezekiel is actually depicting what the presence of God that is described throughout the Old Testament looked like. In Hebrew, this cloud was called a kavod, but in the story of Moses, we couldn't see what the kavod looked like on the inside. Although it did follow the Israelites around wherever it went, we didn't get a glimpse inside of it, and here Ezekiel is actually describing what's within the kavod, which is an exciting transition. In the middle of the cloud was something like 4 living creatures. This was their appearance. They were of human form. Each had 4 faces, and each of them had 4 wings. Their legs were straight, and the soles of their feet were like the soles of a calf's foot, and they sparkled like burnished bronze. As for the appearance of their faces, the 4 had the face of a human being, the face of a lion on the right side, the face of an ox on the left side, and the face of an eagle. Such were their faces. Their wings were spread out above. Each creature had 2 wings, each of which touched the wing of another, while 2 covered their bodies. Each moved straight ahead. Wherever the Spirit would go, they went, without turning as they went. In the middle of the living creatures, there was something that looked like burning coals, like torches moving to and fro among the living creatures. The fire was bright, and lightning issued from that fire. Now, these creatures depicted are similar to many Near Eastern gods. We have to remember that contrary to popular belief that the Hebrew Bible has many roots in Near Eastern pagan religion. And these creatures seem alien to many that read these texts because they weren't aliens, but they're deities. They're meant to be seen as strange. And you might say to yourself, they don't seem like any other god that I've ever read about in my studies or in school. But I would imagine that the gods you spent time learning about in school had Hellenistic origins, like the God of the New Testament and like the gods of Rome and the gods of Greece. But both of these sets of gods are depicted as having human forms, but there are many pantheons of gods that look nothing like people. The reason you have not heard of other gods that are far more bizarre in their appearance has nothing to do with them being aliens, but rather the concept is alien to you because that is what colonization does. Every system of belief outside of the conqueror seems odd and it seems foreign. As I looked at the living creatures, I saw a wheel on the earth beside the living creatures, one for each of the four of them. As for the appearance of the wheels and their construction, their appearance was gleaming, and the four had the same form, their construction being something like a wheel within a wheel. When they moved in any of the four directions without veering as they moved. Their rims were tall and awesome, for the rims of all four were full of eyes all around. When the living creatures moved, the wheels moved beside them. And when the living creatures rose from the earth, the wheels rose. Wherever the Spirit would go, they went, and the wheels rose along with them, for the spirit of the living creatures was inside the wheels. When they moved, the others moved. When they stopped, the others stopped. And when they rose from the earth, the wheels rose along with them, for the spirit of the living creatures was in the wheels. Spinning wheels within wheels that are covered in eyes, this is actually a Hebrew depiction of what angels looked like. And this is why angels would often say in the Old Testament when they would visit humans, do not be afraid. Because if a creature that looked like that just suddenly showed up in front of me, I can guarantee you I'm going to piss my pants, all right? But when people unfamiliar with that history of what ancient Hebrew angels look like, when they read this verse about wheels turning and flashing and just suddenly moving in different directions and fire and lights, as it's written here, their first thought is understandably aliens, all right? And it would be easy to think this is about a flying saucer. And it doesn't help that in our culture we have lots of people that pull inspiration from this text to defend that view. The History Channel literally had a series called Ancient Aliens that was a huge success. I use that term lightly. And they often used the text in Ezekiel in many of their episodes for every season. And as an aside, I'd like to point out to the writers at the Ancient Alien or the Ancient Alien folks that it's beyond fucked up that ancient black civilizations are often depicted as incapable of constructing grand architecture like the pyramids without help from alien civilizations. All right, that's kind of racist. Maybe we can't explain yet how these grand pyramids and these modern marvels were constructed because the ancient Egyptians were simply amazing architects, Chad. Just saying, but I digress. Over the heads of the living creatures, there was something like a dome, shining like crystal spread out above their heads. Under the dome, their wings were stretched out straight and toward one another. And each of the creatures had two wings covering its body. When they moved, I heard the sound of their wings, like the sound of mighty waters, like the thunder of the Almighty, a sound of tumult, like the sound of an army. When they stopped, they let their wings down, and there came a voice from above the dome over their heads when they stopped and when they let down their wings. And above the dome, over their heads, there was something like a throne in appearance, like sapphire, and seated above the likeness of a throne was something that seemed like a human being. Upward from what appeared like the loins, I saw something like gleaming amber, something that looked like fire enclosed all around. The overall imagery of this kavod, this divine cloud that many have attributed to spacecraft and aliens, here in this text, is actually images that are also given to the Canaanite storm god Baal, a god of Canaanite mythology. And we would do well to remember, before you claim that I'm a heretic, that ancient Judaism has and shares some of its roots with Canaanite pagan worship practices and mythology. And this explains why God here is seen riding a throne fixated to a stormy cloud and why there are flashes of light and lightning and fire, because that was the imagery that was also used to depict Baal. It is a striking similarity between the Hebrew God and Baal here. So if we study the Canaanite foundations within the Hebrew Bible, this is of no surprise, but many people don't know that, which is why this conversation is important, to educate you. So when you hear this stuff, you can say, actually, this is what's going on. But you might be thinking to yourself, well, Christopher, what if you're wrong? Well, there are many times that is surely a possibility because there's a lot of things that we just kind of make our best educated guess with in regards to scripture. This is not one of those times because the next verse literally says this. It says, "This was the semblance of the appearance of the likeness of the glory of God." I'm going to repeat that because it's such odd verbiage. This was the semblance of the appearance of the likeness of the glory of God. Now, this is odd phrasing for sure, but it's the silver bullet to the belief in ancient aliens in the Bible. This Hebrew phrase literally means this vision that I'm giving to you is transcendent and not physical, meaning that the verse literally means, hey, all of that I just described, it's a metaphor. Everything. So I'm sorry, tinfoil hatters. Not this time. Not this time. So here's my point. Bad theology, it runs rampant in the American church, and conspiracy theories run equally rampant in America, which is why this conversation matters. Biblical prophecy can be inspirational mythology for a nonviolent revolution. It can be inspiration and hope as we navigate life's struggles and tragedies, but it's not Harry Potter for conspiracy theorists. That's not what it is. Biblical prophecy is a collection of metaphorical visions for a better tomorrow that were inscribed by oppressed cultures centuries past and over the course of centuries. And we can glean a great deal of knowledge from these texts if we read them with that lens. So the Bible has nuggets of wisdom for us, America. It just wasn't written to us. On the night Jesus was betrayed, they took bread and they broke it. And they said, "This is my body, broken for you. Take and eat, and as often as you do, do so in remembrance of me." Likewise, they took out some wine and they passed it to their disciples. And they said, "This is my blood, spilled for you. Take and drink, and as often as you do so in remembrance of me." As we take of these elements, let us remember that it's our job to re-steer this ship that has caused so much destruction in its wake. Bad theology is running rampant, and it's causing hella turmoil in America. Let's right the course and correct these wrongs before they continue to sow harm to the innocent. And until next week, love y'all. Grace and peace. And now, may the revolution of Jesus go with you wherever it may send you. May it guide you in healing this wasteland and protect you through the storm. May it lead you through this world seeking the justice it demands for you and for others. And may it bring you home preparing to continue love's mission beyond your doors. Grace and justice to you.